My name is Peter H., and I'm joined once again by my co-host from Omaha, Nebraska, Stevie J.
We have a 5-round slobber knocker from UFC in Japan to talk about. We have UFC 192 to preview. We have Bellator 143 to discuss. And we have news on Jon Jones.
In fact, let's start with Jon Jones, and basically, I think the comments I'm seeing is that he skated on this one. He basically gets up to 18 months probation, and he has to do, be 72 or 74.
72 speaking appearances to educate people on the dangers of reckless driving or driving under the influence, whatever it is. He has to give lectures to kids, basically. That's his community service.
So he does the appearances, he meets all the probation requirements.
Right,
and he'll get a conditional discharge.
Supervised probation. 18 months supervised, which means he has to comply with each and everything they ask him to do, including they can hand him a cup and make him take a random drug test at any time.
So, I think he's in a position now where if he sneezes improperly, they can bust him now.
Yeah, you better forget about that little white powder habit you got, Jones. That ain't gonna fly now.
It's interesting to see the responses on Twitter when it comes to the comparisons. I know they're saying, yes, it's different court, yes, it's different judges, but you look at someone who was in a hit and run and caused a pregnant woman to break her arm, gets supervised probation for 18 months, and then Nick Diaz gets a 5-year suspension.
Well, first of all, Nick Diaz is definitely appealing that, and he's probably going to get it reduced when he does. Second of all, it's not criminal court. It's a completely different ballgame. Being barred from fighting is not the same as possibly going away for years behind penitentiary bars. They're not even comparable.
Now, Jon Jones in the past has a DUI arrest. This is his second real brush with the law. And someone tried to make the point about his cocaine use, but that technically wasn't an arrest. It wasn't technically a crime.
Again, completely different ballgame. We're talking about being tested for a fight versus being tested by the police because you were pulled over for being impaired, and so they're not even comparable.
So you can't use that argument against Jon Jones in a court of law.
No. Anything he did while being tested for a fight is completely irrelevant to criminal proceedings, and he is damn lucky that he's getting the Hollywood sentencing, which I did predict on this show.
Mm-hmm.
I'll pat myself on the back. I didn't think
he'd get a Hollywood treatment in Albuquerque, New Mexico courtroom, but whatever.
Oh, of course he does. There are different standards for people who are talented or rich or have connections than there are for people like you or I. Not saying that we're not talented. I'm just saying there's Jon Jones sentencing and then there's everybody else.
Well, as I said before, if he steps out of line just one step, I mean, they can throw the book at him because 18 months probation, that's not exactly, easy time. It's basically, they can, as you said, they can show up at your front door anytime they want with a cup you gotta pee in.
Right. This is supervised probation. This doesn't mean you check in with your parole officer once every couple of weeks. This means we're keeping our eyes on you and you better fly right and straighten up.
And there's no travel restrictions, so he can do whatever he needs to do because it's pursuant to his employment at the UFC. Now, Dana White was actually in the courtroom for the hearing, and he basically said at the end of it, as reporters after the hearing was over, saying that when Jon Jones comes back, he'll get an immediate title shot.
Let me take this further than just you and I.
Okay.
Everybody listening right now, if you're checking out the replay on AngryMarks.com, if you're downloading it on iTunes, if you're streaming it through the Stitcher mobile app, I don't care. Send us your feedback at HardcoreCDN, at AngryMarks. Leave it on our Facebook wall, tinyworld.com/GloveUp. Do you think it's fair for Jon Jones to get an immediate rematch for the title or a title shot?
See, I don't think it's smart because you've got Jon Jones who's been on the shelf for, 4 months now since the accident?
Well, he has been training this whole time. It's not like he sat at home twiddling his thumbs.
Okay, but you don't think there's going to be any bit of rust when he comes back if they book him in 3 months?
I honestly don't think so. If he's been sparring with all the people at Jackson Winklejohn and getting them ready for fights, why wouldn't he be fight ready himself?
Well, I don't know. I think the long layoff physically might not be an issue.
Now,
but
if you're
mentally,
arguing that he's not mentally prepared, that's a whole different kettle of fish. Physically, he would be ready to go right now. Mentally, I don't know if he ever will quite be mentally ready because he wasn't. He got too successful, too young, and it obviously broke him because he started doing all this dumb stuff. So if you're saying, is he going to be mentally ready, that's a question that I don't think can ever be safely answered. I don't know if he's ever mentally ready for this. He clearly wasn't when he became the champion so young.
and depending on what happens this weekend in the main event between Gustafsson and Cormier, we don't know how long the champion of the winner of that fight, how long they're going to have to heal. And they've got Jon Jones, who, I haven't heard of him being injured in any way, shape, or form. So you got to think if he had any injuries, they're all healed up by now.
Well, except for that Chael Sonnen fight where he screwed up his toe.
That's true.
Yeah, but no, this is why I made the caveat when I said title shot or rematch, because if Gustafsson beats Cormier on Saturday, then he has to face Gustafsson again, and if Cormier retains, then he has to face Cormier again. So either way, there's a potential rematch for him.
He handled Cormier better than he handled Gustafsson, though.
Yeah, well, a lot of people think Gustafsson beat him, and that issue has yet to be settled, which may make it more interesting to people if, in fact, Gustafsson wins the title, but we're going to get into that a little bit later. For now, we're just saying that Jon Jones ought to consider himself really lucky. The judge even said as much. He said, you should realize how lucky you are right now, quote unquote.
I forget who posted it on Twitter, but there's a quote from the hearing where Jon Jones said, looks like I'll have to brush up on my public speaking. And somebody responded with, yeah, and you're driving. Also, you're driving.
Yeah, you know what? He might just want to hire a driver from now on.
Mm-hmm.
I've been saying this about famous athletes that like to party for a while now. If you're going to party, why would you ever drive your own car? You're a rich, famous athlete. You can afford to pay somebody to drive your damn car. Do it.
Now, let's talk about public perception here. When Jon Jones steps out and walks to the octagon, does he get booed? Yeah.
Yeah, he's already public enemy number one before this. You think people are going to like him more now?
No, I'm just saying, do you think he's going to be booed out of the building? Do you think there's such a place as a neutral site? If Gustafsson wins, do you have the fight in the States or do you have it in Gustafsson home country?
I think they've hinted that they would actually have the fight in Sweden if he wins the title.
And if Cormier wins?
If Cormier wins, it's probably in Vegas.
Yeah, I don't think they'll have it in Denver.
No, but I don't think we should even worry about whether Jon Jones gets cheered or booed. I think Jon Jones should just mentally accept that people don't like him anymore. They haven't liked him for a couple of years now, and this ain't going to make things any better. He needs to actually embrace the role of a villain. He needs to accept that people don't like him and egg them on. He needs to just play into it and get people to hate him so much that they will pay to see him lose.
Now this is in my notes for further, but let's just talk about this now. There is, UFC's filed paperwork. Now this might just be hearsay, but they're looking to hold a show at Madison Square Garden.
They've actually set a date, April 23rd, 2016, Madison Square Garden. This is a tactic. Do you know why they're doing this?
Yes, I know why they're doing it. The reason I'm bringing this up is, depending on what kind of card they want, it won't be as stacked because they've got UFC 200 just 2 months later. So you want to have another stacked card. I could make the argument, if you want to have a big fight to headline that show, why not put Jon Jones on that card?
That's why I say this is a tactic, because they don't even need a card for April 23rd. They don't care if that's 25 fighters that nobody's ever heard of. The whole point is not even to build a mega show for Madison Square Garden. They're saying, here, we have a show booked for Madison Square Garden. Your law is unconstitutional, and we can't execute this contract, so now we have a valid claim in court, which they didn't previously have before because they didn't have a contract for a fight in the state. So now they have a better argument in court saying, look here, Madison Square Garden, you're preventing us from doing this. They actually have a leg to stand on in court now. It's simply a tactic to get their lawsuit into court and get a preliminary injunction. They don't care who's on that card. They don't care if that card even happens, to be frank.
I just find more Jon Jones's, I think Jon Jones is better suited, like, for crowd response in the East Coast and the West Coast. I think he gets a bigger pop in an East Coast city like a New York or a New Jersey. Anyways, let's move on.